Transforming Your Organizational Culture into Thriving Learning Ecosystem by Dr. Sheena Agarwal, Talent Development Leader at Genpact. Dr. Sheena Agarwal is a talent development leader at Genpact, responsible for senior leader talent management, design, and delivery of leadership programs, executive, staff key roles organization, designs, and performance management. She holds a PhD in succession planning and MBA from IMI New Delhi. Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause for Dr. Sheena Agarwal.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. So I know the picture is a little bit, it's an old one, but this is me. I'm Sheena Agarwal, and I'm the talent development leader at Genpact. Now, the topic for the day is org culture and how it helps us build a thriving learning and performance ecosystem. Let's begin with what we managed to get done last year. Last year, we managed to clock about 10 million learning hours, and that's about 2.5 times pre-pandemic time. Okay. The second thing is we managed to have about 50K or 50,000 employees log onto our learning platform and complete, one or the other learning program. And this is equivalent to about 50% of our workforce. The third thing that we managed to do is we had about 600 skills which have been made available across 80 different domains. Now, these three things are basically taking care of the supply side of the learning, which is making sure that people are upskilled, making sure that people are learning, and so on. The other big win for us, and which is where my question to Gautam also came, which is around how do you staff for open roles. Last year, we managed to fill in about 33% of our open roles through internal staffing or internal talent, and this year our target is about 50%. And most delightfully, we managed to show a positive correlation between learning effort, employee engagement, and performance levels of employees. Now, all of this is numbers, right? But this is not a one-year story. For us, this is a story that we have been trying to tell or trying to craft for the last 5 years. All of this has not been possible in 1 year. We started this in 2018. So before I get into that piece, I think it's important to understand who we are as an organization. How did we manage to get here? What's our journey been like? Now, many of you who are familiar with Genpact would know that we are a BPO company, right? Most of you would think that we are in the business process outsourcing space. But I'd also like to inform you that we are a professional services firm. In fact, 50% of our revenue comes from the consulting business that we do. And we are a $5 billion company. Now, in 2016 or 17, when we decided to move from BPO to consulting, we also realized that the same skills will not work. The skills that brought us to about 20 years of work will not continue to work in the future, right? And the second thing we learned is that the shelf life of a skill is exponentially going down, right? So previously, if you learned a skill, it would hold you in good stead for 40 years, 50 years. You could have a career because of that single one skill. But today, you cannot do that anymore. If you look at shelf lives of skills today, it's about 2.5 years. I think it's gone down to about 1.8 years. And ever since generative AI has come, I think it's about 3 days or 4 days, right? So it's important to keep learning. And our intention was to create something that would help build this learning ecosystem. So what did we do? In Genpact, we have this wise words. You will hear it so much. I think many of you would have heard it. Peter Drucker said it first. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. But at Genpact, we say that it eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? So what does that mean? I think it's important to understand also Genpact as a culture. We think of ourselves, if you come into Genpact, there is a definite energy. We are a very courageous lot. We love to, poke holes into the plans. We love to ask questions. We are curious. We are incisive. We have this whole thing around speed to outcome. We always want to be making sure that we are disruptive in nature, that we are evolving, right? And this is the way we do business. When you walk into a Genpact office, you cannot miss it. In fact, a lot of people leave Genpact within the first 2 or 3 months because they cannot deal with this kind of change that we expect from them, right? So similarly, in the whole scheme of culture eat strategy for breakfast, we said, why not build a learning ecosystem, which is not just an ecosystem. We don't want to create a learning platform. What we want to create is what we are calling a super mind. We took inspiration from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and researchers have come up with something called collective intelligence, and I'm sure there's a lot of literature that you could look at. We try to create a learning ecosystem which is like the human brain, which is like the human mind, which is forever evolving, where there are multiple nodes of people, of individuals who are continuously creating content. They are able to build skills. They are able to share that knowledge with each other. So you have a lot of people in our organization who must be consuming a lot of skills, but also gurus in other skills, right? So we call this particular ecosystem genome, right? And many of you may have also heard of genome, because about 2 years ago, we did go up with a splash, sharing the good news with the rest of the world. Genome worked out really well for us, and you saw the numbers as well. Now, what I'd like to share with you are some of the key tenets. How do you build an ecosystem? How do you build a culture that allows all of this to happen? The first and foremost thing is you need to be able to enable unlearning and reskilling. So we allow for people to create an inventory of their skills and tell us, how do we share these skills? How do we reskill ourselves at scale? Note the word here of importance is at scale. We need to be teaching or learning, allowing for learning for 110,000 people in the organization. The second thing is we wanted it to be human-centered. Okay, so this is not about what I want to teach employees. It's about what employees want to learn. It's not about when I want to schedule a training for them, but it is about them having to do it in the flow of their work. So when you want to create an ecosystem, you want to build a culture of learning, you have to let your audience take the call. And thirdly, we said that we had trilingual skills. We wanted people to be able to experiment with all the skills. So digital skills, domain skills, data skills. These are the 3 Ds at Genpact, and we expect that no matter which role you are in, you are able to pick up the skills that you need, and all of these skills are talking to each other. The fourth piece is harnessing the power of teams and collective intelligence. You remember I talked about the super mind. We expect people to be talking to each other about what they learned. We expect people to be assessing each other. There is a lot of peer evaluation that goes into how people, when they complete a particular skill, they learn it, they apply it, they ask for feedback, they receive feedback, they create content on what they have learned. So it's really the power of teams. We don't expect that there will be one expert sitting somewhere teaching everyone. We expect everybody to learn from each other. And last but not the least, we believe in data and insights. So we have several tools, and if you remember my first slide, I mentioned we managed to create a positive correlation between the learning and the employee satisfaction and performance. That's not an easy thing to pull off, simply because even today, if you look at the HR community, we are trying to answer questions around that, right? So what we saw is people who spend more time learning, they are less likely to leave their job. They are less likely to be an attrition risk. They are more likely to be considered top talent in the organization, and are more likely to be happier overall. We also found that their teams tend to be happier, right? So that's creating data, making sure that the insights work for all of us. Now, that's about 10 minutes that I've taken. I wanted to make sure that I have some time for some questions. It's open to all of you. Any questions on how we made this happen? Yep. That's a very good question. So the way we do this is we look at um, how, we look at performance in the terms of deciles. Okay, so not percentiles as such. We look at every 10 percentile of the organization. What is their level of performance? We also do the same thing for engagement scores. So we see how many people are showing engagement rates at, let's say, 40%, 50%, 60%, and people who are at the 90%. Then what we do is we see how much learning are all of these people, these specific people doing, and then we are able to pull together a correlation between that. So in terms of numbers, if you were to look at it, there's a lot of data around there, but what we managed to pull out was a positive correlation that if people are learning, then there is definitely a spike, or we can be fairly sure that they will continue to stay in the organization. They have higher scores. We have a tool called Amber, and I mean, many of you may have used the tool as well. It's Amber is our chief listening officer. What Amber does for us is it reaches out to employees every 3 months, asks them questions around, hey, what do you think? What are you learning? What do you feel that you're getting enough support on the job? And once we get answers to all of those questions, we are able to correlate multiple things. Also, Genpact is a company which is high on data and insights. It's a core of what we do. So we are able to pull out different kinds of data to see investment in what will create more benefit for us.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Can we have a mic, please?
See, when we say that we need to unlearn, I think the most important thing is for people to acknowledge that what got them here will not get them ahead, right? So when we expect people to unlearn, it's more about, you can't really unlearn and say, you know, okay, I don't know this anymore. It's about an acknowledgement that, listen, if I need to move roles, if I need to do more, if I need to add more value, I need to also figure out what are those skills that will help me perform at a different level. So I don't think it was such a big challenge to get people to unlearn. But initially, I think we had a lot of, it was a push kind of a strategy where we had to get people onto Genome. We had to get them onto the platform. But once we had people come on, we kind of realized that people caught to it really fast. In fact, I would say the pandemic was kind of a blessing for us because we were going into a complete virtual mode even before the pandemic came through. So we converted a lot of our programs into a virtual setup, and I mean, people caught on to it in a big way.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, we have a question.
Can we have a mic, please?
Or an analogy where Genpact enabled the culture of marrying or amalgamating uh, the, the learning strategy with the business strategy.
With the?
Business strategy, or
Okay.
a business oriented solution through learning and development.
Got it. So we have our strategy, our business strategy is something that we call the blueprint, and we have something called the blueprint 2026 in place. Now we have been creating the blueprint since 2012. So we have 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and so on. It was in blueprint 3.0 that we decided that we don't want to be only a BPO, but we want to be even a consulting organization. So that's a very clear shift. Okay. And we kind of realized that we wanted to get to not only 50% of revenue, but greater percentage of revenue. Now, having said that, we also realized that the skills that make us a great BPO will not necessarily be the skills that make us a good consulting organization as well. So when you ask me what is the learning strategy, I think first is we were able to acknowledge very quickly that we need a different kind of DNA, we need a different kind of skill set which will get us to be a consulting organization. Today when I look at the 600 plus skills that we offer across 80 domains, you will find that more than half of them are data analytics skills, and even as of last week we launched a learning program only on generative AI. Why? Because a lot of our clients are asking us, what more can you do on generative AI? So I think we are pretty much in sync with the business strategy. In fact, this term blueprint that I talk about, every single meeting we are talking about how does this align. And I think the number of skills that we are offering, the success that we have had with those kind of skills is a very good example. I hope I answered your question.
Yes. So were there any tangible results that business could identify or recognize?
I think it's the revenue. Today, as on date, while we were looking at creating 50% of revenue from consulting, today as on date, we have 47% revenue coming only from this side of our business. I think that's pure, that's what we even go to the street with. It's a very good example of what we managed to achieve.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay, if not, there is coffee after a while. I'm happy to talk to you then.
Thank you
so
so
much for
much.
your patience. It was very enjoyable to talk to you. And thank you for your questions too.
Thank you. Requesting you to please be on the stage for the felicitation. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please have a big round of applause for such amazing session by Dr. Sheena Agarwal. Requesting Mr. Deepak Mukherjee to please be on the stage to felicitate Dr. Sheena Agarwal. Thank you so much.